in-depth interviews, candid conversation,
honest about my crazy. You guys all want to talk about go right.
an hour of honesty and entertainment.
Yeah, no, really.
It's time to exhale.
Great scripts.
Welcome to Exhale, the show where we tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God. I'm Renee Seiler, and I'm joined by four fabulous women: Angela Burt Murray, Erin Jackson, Issa Rae, and Melinda Williams. You know, people say never talk about politics and religion. Well, forget about the politics part, but we are talking about religion. We're also talking about faith and why these discussions stir up so many emotions. Joining us today are R&B artist Kelley Price, studio executive and author Devon Franklin, Pastor Beverly Bam Crawford, and author and atheist Dr. Sikivu Hutchison. So this should make for some spirited conversation. So let's kick things off with a little confession. And hello, ladies.
Hello.
How you doing?
It's confessional time already? We have to confess things?
Oh, you didn't know, did you?
So
many
you didn't
sins.
tell us.
So many sins, guys.
I don't.
Okay, right now, you guys just scoot away from her, okay?
Exactly.
I have to say, one of the things that really makes me crazy is that sometimes the people who are supposed to be the most Christ-like are not. You know, sometimes you see the judgment and it's all too much.
Exactly.
Do you think, Issa?
I definitely agree. That's one of the main issues I have, because that's just that's human. Like, that's being human, and I don't necessarily agree with. I'm all about morality in a way, and I do have my own set of beliefs and my own spirituality in a sense, but I don't like the judgment of others. I don't like no one's.
But the judgment is not what the religion's supposed to be about. So anybody that's trying to put forth that they are in this godlike walk,
right,
and that they don't make mistakes and they don't sin is actually lying. That's
what it is now.
Everybody is on a different path. Everybody is, on their own faith journey, and it's a journey. So, and no one is sin free.
I mean, in the Bible, if you're a Christian, it says that all
have
have
fallen.
But it feels like religion has become a sense of judgment now. Like everything is in the name of it. You know, people are killing themselves or killing other people in the name of judgment because we're not following a set of rules, and it's crazy to me. It needs a reset. Someone needs to click reset.
You look like your brain is working hard. What are you thinking about?
No, I was just thinking about the judgment piece. When she said it, she made me think about, we all in our own ways are judgmental. Even I think I'm not a judgmental person, but I'm very strong-willed and strong opinioned, and I'm very opinionated.
Bossy.
And bossy. And bossy, yes.
We call her the general around here.
You know what, though? I think Jesus was probably bossy, too. I'm pretty sure he was.
In a loving way.
I'm just trying to be Christ-like.
You
That's all
just compared yourself to Jesus, so that's bossy.
Yeah, well.
What component do you think, or how much of a part of social media do you think plays into all of this? And we're all very social media savvy people.
Yes.
So make sure you follow us and like the Facebook page. But anyway, but because I do feel like we see these memes that come through and say, if you're not a Christian if you don't pass this along to 30 of your friends.
Yeah, maybe I do love Jesus. I don't like junk mail. Maybe that's what.
Right. It feels like a competition sometimes. And I've seen a lot of contradictory statements via social media. It cracks me up. Like I saw a girl tweet, it doesn't matter if hoes judge me because Jesus got me. Like, what does that mean? What are you talking about?
Funny.
Jesus doesn't approve of that status.
Right.
So,
That status update.
not ordained.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if Jesus were here on Twitter?
Right.
I mean, really?
Facebook should have a little post where you can just say, Jesus, take the wheel. But you can just do that post.
I'm sorry, but Jesus is on Twitter.
Sometimes it is the whole, keeping up with the Joneses. We're doing this because it looks good. We're praising God because that's what we're supposed to do, and so that we can get this many likes and have people go, oh, you're living right, when you're not living right.
But I think it goes back to what Melinda said earlier. Your faith and your spirituality is about your personal connection, and that's what people should be focused on.
But why don't people, especially us, get that?
Well, if it's about a personal relationship, then why do we? I understand the idea of community, but why do we need to go to church? Why do we need to go to temple? Why do we?
Well, that's what I was going to ask.
That's where the religion part, I believe, comes in. For me, years ago, I was traveling a lot, and what I do, I can't go to the same church every single weekend. I'm in different cities and different states. And so I just remember one day saying to God, I need you to meet me. I need you to meet me where I am. I need you to meet me at the post office, because some of these women are trying to get me to cuss them out. And I need to see you at the grocery store. Show me you in the produce aisle. So that to me was like, it's not necessarily about the church. God, I take God with me wherever I go, or he meets me. He meets me there.
I grew up in a very religious household. I am not a church goer at this point in my life.
That's
a
surprising,
regular church goer.
actually.
I mean, my parents still are very. Hey, you were being sarcastic. No, but I'm not, and it's I know
Did
my
you
parents.
stop going? Like,
I
was there a
did.
reason you
I
stopped
pretty
going?
much. There wasn't a reason. There was no traumatic event or anything like that happened for me. I literally left the house for college, got out of the habit of having somebody wake me up and say, I don't have to go.
Did you feel guilty about it?
I did it first.
Okay.
I did it first. And I would go, and I never found a church. I'd go to chapel every now and then when I was at Howard University. But
Here she goes again.
Well, if you don't mind me asking, did you continue your practice even though you weren't still going to church?
I'm going to be honest, no. I
You
didn't.
pray before you eat.
I do pray before I eat. I pray before I go to bed. I do.
So you have a faith
But I'm
relationship.
not studying. I wasn't
But
reading
you
the
have
Bible.
a faith relationship.
But you have a belief system is
Yeah.
basically what
I
she's
do,
talking
but I
You
think
say God bless you on people's knees?
I do. I'm going to heaven then, I guess.
Clearly, that's all it takes.
Okay, you guys hang on to those thoughts. Really, really good. In a moment, Angela and Issa will continue this conversation with Pastor Beverly Bam Crawford as they talk about getting through the trials that put our faith to the test. So get ready, because this is where we let it all out and exhale.
Layaway is better at Walmart with no opening fee, so get started today.
Walmart has hundreds of models about layaway backed by AdMatch.
Layaway with AdMatch is awesome.
Wow. So if I see it somewhere else, I can bring that ad in and they...
I guess I bring the funny, some of the funny, half the funny that Issa doesn't bring. Yeah, I find the funny in the context of the conversation. I always worry about my eyes because I can't control them. They're so big. That's what I do best. Being on stage and seeing people laugh their hearts out brings me joy. Knowing that something I did or something I wrote elicited that response from people is the best thing ever. I'm a fun girl. I'm a funny girl. I'm a stand-up comedian. I'm a lover of pizza and Chinese food. I bring the big eyes, the mom eyes, snarky, sarcastic remarks. That's what I did. So hopefully nobody will be offended by that. I'm Erin Jackson from Exhale. One more time? Okay.
We're back with Pastor Beverly Bam Crawford.
Welcome, Pastor Bam Crawford. We are so blessed to have you join us today. Thank you so much for coming.
Well, it's a blessing to be here.
My co-host and I were just having a very passionate conversation about our personal beliefs and crisis of faith. Can you tell me, was there ever a moment in your life where you felt like you were having a crisis of faith?
Oh, my goodness. I'd have to go back a long time ago. Okay. Not that it hasn't happened recently, but the first time that I really realized it was when I was about 10 years old. Okay, and my mother died. My faith was shattered, because I felt like, how could a God that is a loving God let this happen? I didn't see after a while that God was good, because I had to deal with poverty and molestation and rape and all that kind of stuff, and living on the streets and being homeless. And so that's growing up. And so I had some real quandaries going on about this God that everybody talks about. Over the years, of course, obviously, within me and God, we're able to reconcile some of, I was going to say some of our differences, like it's on him and not on me. I was able to reconcile my problem, my differences, and learn to trust him again.
Well, I think that's a really good point, because a lot of people come into a moment where they have a crisis of faith, whether it's a personal incident like the death of a loved one, or it's looking at the larger community and seeing, random acts of violence.
We say, well, why did God let that person do that? Why didn't he just stop it?
Right.
And I just realized that, we're not dealing with just one element here. Some people don't want to talk about the forces of evil.
Right.
And so I'm forced sometimes to look at there is evil in the world.
Right.
There are people who are sick, and there are people who do evil things. And many times the evil things that people do can be as a result of some evil that happened to them, that caused that. And so I try not to focus on the individual or the event, but on that person's personal relationship with where they are. If they don't have a relationship with God, but just if they believe in God or believe in something spiritual or believe in something of somebody bigger or greater than them, that's a good place to start.
But how do you reach the kids like now? I mean, that's your personal journey as well, but like as far as a child or a teenager coming into your church and saying, I don't really know why I'm here.
I do just that. First thing I do is I love them, just like they are. Tattoos, earrings, short skirt, you know what I mean? Hey, blue hair, blonde hair, saggy pants, I don't set up any rules of acceptance. Okay, that's the first thing I do. And after that, then I begin to relate to them. And what do you like? What is it that you want to do? And I listen to them, because a lot of young people are tired of church. You know what I mean? They don't want to go to church. Doesn't mean that they don't want to know God or they don't want to know Christ or they want to, but they're tired of the institution and the mentality of church.
They also see some very tabloidy hypocrisies.
Yeah, they do. I'm a minister, but if I wasn't, I may not be in the church because I can relate to how they feel about the traditionalism, the hypocrisy. I say to people, if it's going on in the church, why are you still there? We as a people are so loyal to leadership. We love our pastors, we love our bishops, and we love our elders, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't. I'm not saying that you shouldn't. But I think we need to hold them to a higher standard.
Well, there needs to be accountability.
Yeah, there has to be accountability.
And people always say, judge not lest ye be judged. But if someone has put themselves forward as I'm going to lead you in the Word of God, and you fall very short of that through some sort of, criminal activity, you should not still be allowed to lead the church.
Well, I agree with you totally. If we don't prosecute or hold these people accountable if they're doing criminal acts, why aren't they treated like criminals? I'm not saying not to be merciful, because I have people in our congregation that have gone to jail, gone to prison, and I believe there's restoration for everyone. But I think true restoration deals with repentance or a changed heart or mind, where you change the way that you deal with things. I think that we are too tolerant.
I want to talk to you about something that I struggle with in my faith walk. There are certainly passages that, are homophobic and, sexism and xenophobia, all those things. How can we as modern women certainly be, fortified and nourished by the words that are in the Bible, but also just reconcile it with the times in which we live?
There are some things that span times. I say it's just beyond dispensations or any particular period of time. And I think, like, when you look at the scripture says that the women are not to keep silent in the church, it does require study, because silent doesn't mean not to talk or anything. It has to mean not to bring about confusion, because of the way women were treated during the time. When you look at the book of Leviticus chapter 18 is where you're going. If a person reads that entire chapter, it is dealing with areas that would be potential for incest. And so for any other area, you're not to bring forth your nakedness before your mother or your brother or your sister-in-law or your brother-in-law, and on and on and on and on. By the time it gets down to men lying with mankind as with womankind, whether that it is true today, I believe what the scriptures say. If the scriptures say that today, I believe that's what it says. So
you're saying you think that's an abomination as well?
Yes, I do. But you have to define abomination. Also, lying is an abomination. Pride is an abomination. Arrogance is an abomination. So really, you have to look at abomination is an abomination.
All right.
But how do you? I would imagine that you have homosexual members of your congregation and you minister to them. So how do you reconcile that with
how I do
belief?
Just by loving them. Just by loving them, and I don't, and not to preach to them and talk to them about what you're not doing, because all of us are working on something. All of us are doing the things in our life. All of us are dealing with something, and that's the way I approach it.
As far as other religions are concerned, like, a lot of people are doing harm in the name of religion, but do you find yourself embracing other religions like Islam and
Well, I do like this. And when you think of ecumenism, where all the religions come together and the unified thought and unified voice, I'm fine as long as I don't have to compromise my faith in Christ. And because I work with in mental health, because our church is a mental health provider, and one of the things we understand is the spiritual component in healing and health for people. That spiritual component could be Christ in your life, but it could be something else in your life, whatever that spiritual component is, and to respect that spiritual component if you want to see people whole and well. I believe that we can fellowship together. I believe we can bring the best of what we have so that we can impact the community or whatever the needs are in the community.
Right. That's super important.
Yeah, it is very important.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Pastor Bam. This was an amazing conversation, and we truly appreciate all your words of inspiration and your testimony.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
You shared with us today.
Thank you for having me, and you too, girl.
Thank you so much.
Got me on the hot seat over here.
We'll go one-on-one with R&B artist Kelley Price.
To some people, I am a heretic. I've seen some very harsh things said about myself.
Miss Kelley Price, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me here.
First of all, I have to say that I am a huge fan of your voice.
Thank you.
When you sing, it's like I know exactly what you're going through. I feel it. Sometimes I feel like you're talking to me. Like a friend of mine, I thought, I was your friend. That's what you wrong. So I really, I just love where do you draw experience from?
Oh, experience. Yeah, a wise man once said that there are 3 great teachers in life: your mother, your father, and then experience.
Okay.
And so life.
So everything that you say in your songs is based off of some life experience?
Some life experience. A lot of it my own. A lot of it, surprisingly, people think that every song that I write and sing about is about me. Not so. Actually, a friend of mine was not my experience, but it was someone that I was very close to, that I was with as they were living the experience. And I kind of took on their pain.
Looking back on your career, you have to say that, God put me here, and I'm appreciative of it. What are some of your career successes that you could pinpoint?
Oh my goodness! You know what? I actually believe that every situation, even if I didn't understand it at the moment, was, if not God ordained, God allowed. And with that, even from the moment of my very first professional job, which was an engagement with George Michael in New York City, like who lands that as their first gig? A month later, that led to backing up Mariah Carey in an ensemble for the Grammy Awards. She walked into a rehearsal late one day while I was seated at the piano singing, and the rest of the group was out doing something else. And I stayed behind at the piano with my sister and a friend, and she walked in and heard me singing, and that day I was offered a job.
That gives me chills. That's
yeah.
just,
Yeah.
some moments in life are just meant to be. It seems like you have your roots in R&B, and recently you put out a gospel album.
Yeah. A few years ago, I actually went back and recorded an album called This Is Who I Am.
Okay.
Aptly titled, because I'm a preacher's kid, I'm a church kid, and even with having an open door to step into mainstream music and be an R&B first background vocalist and writer and producer, and then ultimately an artist myself, I didn't feel like it was necessary for me to cut off my foundation, which is the church, in order to do it. I felt like there was a way to just be who I am, which is a person with a gift and a platform to use that gift outside of the 4 walls of the church. I have an opportunity to minister to people's needs, first with the open door of my music,
right,
and then with an opportunity to speak, whether it's one-on-one conversation, sometimes it's in organized services or groups or programs, whether it's youth or women. It's a great opportunity. People will listen to me that otherwise may have never heard Kelley Price from Queens, New York.
It's true.
They're listening to Kelley Price because they know my music and they're familiar with my face and they trust what I have to say.
It's so true, though, because even with my experiences in church, like I can't listen to I couldn't listen to like a pastor just speak because I couldn't feel it. It just seemed like someone was speaking or talking at you. But when you hear music and when it touches you in a certain way, and that's what I love about your voice and just even your writing. Do you feel like you're able to talk about intimacy and sex and love?
Absolutely,
in a gospel album?
And I do it in my own way.
But like as far as your gospel album was concerned, did you get any reception that you weren't expecting?
The very first single, Healing, charted both on R&B charts as well as the gospel charts, which means that people that normally buy Kelley Price records were listening to a message of love and peace and forgiveness and hope and healing in another way from Kelley Price.
Like, how do you feel like people perceive who you are as a woman of God?
It really depends on who you ask. Some people, and I've seen some of the radical Christian blogs and the things that have been said about me. And to some people, I am a heretic. I've seen some very harsh things said about myself. You have those on one end of the spectrum who appreciate the fact that I experience life not just inside of the church, but outside of the church. And because I've had life experiences that I don't mind talking about I try to be transparent.
Like what life experiences would they not approve of?
Well, obviously, sex before marriage and getting pregnant before I was married, and some people just think that the music just there's no excuse for it in the world. I believe that if you do your homework and just read your Bible, church people, please, that Solomon is the most incredible ballad love song writer in history.
Okay.
The entire Song of Solomon is pretty much all that. And
I only know the Toni Morrison book.
I tell you what, it gets so racy. There are some things in the book of the Song of Solomon that are so racy that in the Jewish tradition, their children are not allowed to read it until they get past a certain age, because it does get pretty intense. And so he talks about breasts and wanting to touch you and lay in your bosoms and live on your love and drink the nectar of your this, and it's very, very graphic, but it's the beauty. He talks very intently about the beauty of love between a man and a woman, and so that's in the Bible. And if the Bible can talk about it, oh my God, yes. Oh my God, yes.
So pick up the Bible on some lovely nights.
I tell you what, you'll get some instruction. It'll help you.
So it's no secret that you had a great friendship with Whitney Houston.
Yes.
So how did Whitney's death affect you?
Whitney, good Lord. Okay. It hit me. It hit me very, 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 very hard. Obviously, we'd known each other for quite some time. I met Whitney in 1998. And true story, she said to me she was riding up Jersey Turnpike and she heard this song come on WBLS in New York. She was a friend. Yes. She said, oh, who is this heifer singing? She got to be from the church. She said, Kelley, I pulled over because I was about to crash into the median on the Jersey Turnpike.
She at church in the same.
Yeah, she did. She did. She did. That was come on, Jersey, baby. That was Whitney. But she looked for me and she said, I have to work with you. And that's how Heartbreak Hotel came about. And from it just came a love and a sisterhood that had absolutely nothing to do with the business. One thing that I know about Whitney, and I'll never have to share every private discussion that we had, she was very clear of who she was. She was very clear of the things that she'd done, good, bad, indifferent. She was very clear of the mistakes that she made. She knew where she was weak. She knew where she was strong. Nobody made Whitney Houston do anything that she didn't want to do. And I respected the fact that no matter what, she could own who she was. Now, in the end, whether or not you appreciated what you saw, I knew that of her. She never blamed anybody for anything that happened to her because ultimately Whitney decided for Whitney what happened, which is why she was able to be so honest with me and say, don't you, Kelley. What helps me is remembering that people are just that. They're people and they're capable of making mistakes. God knows that helped me get over feeling like I didn't want to be bothered with anything that had to do with church or Christianity or any of that. Ultimately, I do believe that God is my source. And so it doesn't matter if a person messes up or if a person rejects me. I can deal with my emotion about it. She's dealt with her emotion about it. Right. But ultimately, it was faith in God and understanding that people are people.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Kelley.
you for having me, Issa. Thank you.
Up next, Melinda and Aaron talk to Dr. Sikivu Hutchinson about why all African Americans are not cut from the same proverbial cloth.
If you were an atheist, it was almost like that's a cult.
Yeah, exactly. It's very white identified.
Listen. That all African Americans believe in God. But as Dr. Sikivu Hutchinson, author of Moral Combat, Black Atheists, Gender Politics, and the Value Wars, will testify, there are an increasing number of black atheists in America. Sikivu, can you give us an explanation? Like, what's the difference between an atheist and a humanist? Because I've never really heard the humanist term before.
Right. Well, an atheist is someone who simply does not believe in gods or supernatural beings. Okay. A humanist, on the other hand, is someone who subscribes to a belief system that's based upon a notion that morality and ethics are defined by human beings.
In your book, Moral Combat, you discuss how you believe that religion has harmed the African American community.
I definitely look at the historical role that religion has played in the civil rights movement, in conferring with African Americans with a sense of agency, moving us forward into social justice, liberation struggle. But I also look very carefully at the degree to which African American women have really been oppressed and disenfranchised by patriarchal and misogynist structures within the Black church. And certainly if we're to sort of transition and look at the way in which African American gays and lesbians have been treated within the constructs of the Black church, there's a lot of insidiousness there in terms of our full mobility as a people.
It almost sounds as though what you're saying is slightly more political than anything else.
Certainly not disavowing the incredible, power and, again, source of agency, that church communities and church foundations, have had for Black women. But when the rubber meets the road, we really need to look again at the connection between the dogma of the Bible, and African Americans are hands down the most religious community in the United States. I mean, if you look at the Pew Research survey, African Americans are 85%.
Well, yeah, we go to church.
We go to church. We believe in biblical literalism. We're constantly in our Bible, citing scripture. You see us, driving around, here in Los Angeles with, all of the very hyper-religious, I'm churched, I'm prayed up, license plates, and other slogans.
But what's so wrong with that? I mean, what do you think about if that's what I need to keep my day going, or if that's what I need to enjoy my life, or if that's what keeps me grounded? What's so bad about that?
In my mind, it really forecloses critical thinking. Certainly if we look at, again, the Pew survey and the fact that so many African Americans believe in miracles, believe in faith healing, do not question the Bible and its literalism.
Right.
That leads to problems in terms of our embrace of science, critical thinking, rationalism, analyses.
Were you always a free thinker, or were you ever a religious person?
I was never a religious person because I grew up in a humanist household. It was a secular household. There were no Bibles, no Qurans, no religious tracts conspicuously arrayed around the household. And my parents were activists, they were intellectuals, they were writers, they were involved in the movement in the 60s, the Black Power movement, educators in South LA, journalists. So that was really my foundation.
Yeah.
And we were constantly being educated to think, to criticize, to push back, to be skeptics.
Sure.
In other words. So I think that we as African Americans have a skeptical tradition when it comes to institutional racism, when it comes to apartheid in the United States, but when it comes to religion,
yeah,
there's no skepticism,
That's
because this is our cultural heritage.
Do you find yourself coming up against a lot of resistance and or judgment toward your personal character based on your beliefs?
Yes, absolutely. I felt it in terms of just the sheer interpersonal judgment that one gets when you say that, well, I'm a non-believer, I'm a humanist, I don't belong to any church in the community, and then you get constant pushback. There's silent pushback, and then there's more overt pushback in terms of, you're not really an authentic Black woman, if you're not churched.
Yeah, no, like because growing up, that was like a cult. If you were an atheist, it was almost like that's a cult.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's very white identified in the mainstream mind as well. And that has a lot of bearing on the reality and the fact that, very few African Americans are publicly identified atheists. Sure. There's a growing community, but the public face of atheism, and certainly the global face of atheism, is European and European American. Yeah. And some people associate atheism with Satanism. Right. So, we've gotten that before. Devil worshippers, and, we're coming to
because if you don't believe in God, you got to believe in someone. Do you believe in heaven and hell?
No, as an atheist, I don't.
Okay.
So, again, don't subscribe to supernatural, explanations for the universe. Okay. So heaven, hell, they are fairy tales in my mind. But I'm not going to push back against a friend's belief, or an organization's belief. I have problems when it becomes politicized. When, people attempt to establish that dogma, i.e. those who are activists for intelligent design and creationism when they try and push that vis-a-vis public education, really undermining science literacy. And we certainly don't need that as African Americans because we're already grappling with the school-to-prison pipeline where we don't have, access to equitable education and college preparation.
But I think even a lot of Christians have a problem with the politicizing.
Politicization.
Yes, of religion, because still, I mean, that's my view, for example, and it shouldn't have any bearing on law or anything like that.
Right.
Okay, so what about the person who has like a little basket and they say, okay, I really dig what Buddha said, I'm gonna put that in. Okay, Jesus said that was cool too, I'm gonna put that in here. Like, what would that be?
Designer spiritualism.
Designer spiritualism.
Yes.
Okay. Sikivu, thank you so much for sharing all that really great information with us, and I'm really looking forward to reading that. Follow the show on Twitter at Exhale TV. Next up, we will talk to Devon Franklin about walking the walk in the hotbed of temptation, Hollywood.
You have to put your commitment to excellence along with your commitment to faith, put them together and let God just take you where he wants you to go.